I want to present two of my friends in this business, all-star music supervisors and music executives, Kier Lehman and Jeremy Summers. So as you guys know, I'll start with Kier. Kier is a extremely well-respected music supervisor in the industry. He's worked on films like, I think it's actually all the Lego movies and all of their sort of iterations. He works on Insecure, the TV series Insecure, Entourage, and pretty much it feels like anytime that there is people looking for songs, roads seem to somehow lead to Kier. So he's done a pretty amazing job of really establishing himself as a music supervisor. And then my friend Jeremy here, as I stated earlier, we met when Jeremy was the head of marketing at Universal Music in Canada. We've done some ill-fated projects together, probably my fault, not his for sure. And then he kind of transitioned his career into running Fox Television, the music department of Fox Television. So right now, currently, and he'll jump in and really expand on this, but he oversees shows like Empire and Star and I think pretty much everything on the network. So Jeremy, Kier, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Hey, Justin, can I just also give a tip of my cap to Kier, who is 50% of the royal family of music supervision in Hollywood. And he and his wife, Susan, are like some of the greatest to work with, but also some of the most creatively talented music supervisors that we've had exposure to and access to. And they have the luxury of only working now on projects that they are interested in, that they're passionate about. And so it says a lot about you that Kier is a friend of yours. I think the world of him.
I hope it does say a few things about me, actually. Thank you for that. Actually, Kier, if your wife wants to join us, that'd be amazing too. Kier, maybe you can, at the risk of not sounding too over-conceited after that amazing intro by Jeremy, maybe you can talk a little bit more about kind of what you've done, just to kind of, add to the context.
Sure. Thank you guys so much. And that was really sweet. And I've been a music supervisor for about 15 years. I started working for another music supervisor, did a lot of TV shows when we started. And TV, I worked as a music executive at Sony Pictures for about 5 years, where I worked on a lot of films there and gained a lot of experience from that and working with a lot of different directors and producers and different genres of films. And then I've been an independent supervisor working on film and TV. So a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys were able to catch all that. The Wi-Fi seems a bit funky. Jeremy, if you're still with us, we'd love to see your face, but also maybe give us a bit of your background and what you're doing every day over there.
Hi, yes, I am here. And my background is came up through the music business. Kind of did every job at a record label. Started hanging posters back in, actually started playing in a band, playing drums, and had a very successful indie band, which means we didn't make any money and no one knew us. So I hopscotched into the business because I was sort of handling the business portion of the band. And so started putting up posters in 1994, going to record stores when there were record stores, and kind of worked my way through into promotion, into marketing. That's when we met, Justin. And then I was in Canada. I moved to LA in 2011 to work at Interscope Records, and it was there I got a great view of the overall business, because I had come from international. I had a different perspective. I was working closer with artists. We put out Mary J. Blige and Lana Del Rey there, and we're developing Kendrick Lamar. Actually, I saw him at the Whiskey my first night here. It was kind of cool. And so I moved through management, which I hated. A very tough job. Everyone on this call probably has a manager, and so you know how difficult it is. And then I moved into, I joined Fox about 4 years ago. And I joined because I thought it was a great opportunity, first of all, to learn some new skills, but also to have a great impact on artists and on talent. And so my job now is different than Kier. I'm involved at the studio level, staffing up our shows, and working with the showrunners and executive producers to bring in the best supervisors, the best composers, and at some point, commission the best original songs for those shows. And very often, and I hope that we'll talk about this too. It's not always, well, in fact, almost never is it my taste that I'm servicing. But I'm actually trying to help our showrunners and show creators give their best musical version, or give, the best musical character to their vision and their show.
Oh, that's such a great question, because that was actually one of my questions that I was going to ask both of you guys is, and maybe since you set it up so nicely, Jeremy, we'll kind of move it over to Kier. How much is your taste involved in the creative choices regarding the shows that you're working on, or the films that you're working on?
It's definitely a part of it, in that, people, come to me to because of my taste or because of my kind of opinions and experience with different music. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just a job, doing the job of, finding the right music for this project and working with the producers and director on their vision. Sometimes it's just going with them and doing the research to learn about a new genre or a new type of artist or music, and being able to bring that to the project and just kind of deliver what they need.
Yeah, that's you're making a really good point, because in all of my conversations that I've had with, well, certainly both you guys, but also just music supervisors in general, I feel like there's a real passion to kind of like find a hidden gem and really give
Sure.
them a shot, as opposed to just always being like, oh, we're going to go license a Bruno Mars song or an Ed Sheeran song or whatever. I mean, wouldn't you say that's sort of like, is that kind of part of your strategy sometimes, Kier, is like finding, and Jeremy, finding that kind of like unknown little secret that you can kind of really help grow?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a part of it. It's something that I love doing and supporting, independent artists and people who can really, use that it was exposure or a little bit of money or whatever. And giving people something different when they're watching that show or movie, and just not giving them what's expected or what they might assume is going to be there, but giving them something interesting to leave with.
There are moments for it, right, Kier?
Exactly.
Right. There's a moment, and that's one of the things that I have said to a lot of even my friends who do pop records is, my perspective is, so often of the time, if it's I remember one scene we had where it was a teen high school dance, and they wanted a pop, it to be a recognizable song. Well, that's just, okay, go get me the Gaga song that was just released. That's that's a different piece, and a different challenge to find something that is still creatively artful and really serves the scene, but fits that, has to be a big recognizable song, versus what you're really talking about, which is, I think Justin Kier is one of the greats at it, at finding that moment when you can expose something, a new artist, a new sound, something that is, spectacular.
I love hearing that, because I think that for anybody that has been able to have any sort of modicum of success as a creative person, as a songwriter, as a producer, as a manager, whatever, there always had to have been that first domino that fell. And I think a lot of times it does come from film and TV. And again, I don't want to blow up these two guys, because I don't want it to I just want to sort of say that, Kier and I met through a sort of circumstances where there was a song of mine that he liked, and we put it into the Lego Ninjago film. And Jeremy too has always been extremely open in finding and identifying that new talent. And actually, here's a question for both of you guys: how do you do that? I mean, yes, obviously relationships, you've built that up over the years, but what are some sort of ways that you might reach into the digital universe to try and find new potential collaborators or people to work with?
I mean, everyone who works in a music team is a crazy music lover, right? And so whether we're scouring on a Spotify or SoundCloud to find music, the truth is that, Justin, I have so many people now feeding me music that I can barely keep up with that, and so I spend a lot of time relying on my trusted sources to come to us, and when you look at a show that we were doing that just wrapped on Tuesday on Empire, where we did a lot of original songs, we kind of used our needle drops for a fairly familiar or taste worthy fresh faces, but we would do. Oh, Kier just left. We were doing a lot of original music, and so we kind of had a rule in that one: best song wins, and we didn't care where it came from. And so at one point there was a writer in Atlanta. Her name was Tasha Couture, and she, to the best of my knowledge, hadn't even had a cut placed anywhere before, didn't have a team around her. I was coaching her through, what the arrangement would look like. And we ended up placing, I think, 2 of her songs, which, for her, gave her some new bullet points, but also, was, a little bit of money to pay for studio time too.
Yeah, that's a great. That's right. Actually, Karen, I know you're going to answer the question, but you said something earlier that I kind of want to jump back to, if that's okay. You talked about being able to deliver music for a scene that is unexpected. That when it's maybe not the typical, oh, here comes the scene, and I almost look at a series like Hunters where you're seeing blood and gore over happy music or something weird, something very Tarantino-esque or something. But the question I have is, at what point, when you're receiving if you're asking for a specific type of song and someone gives you something left of that, in other words, it's not quite it's not really right, but they go, oh, Kier, maybe think about this as a direction. Is that kind of a turnoff for you, or are you open-minded to kind of going off, not literally off script, but off of your script?
Yeah, I think I probably do that pretty often, just because I feel like part of my job is helping people think about things in a different way, just through my experience, and it's always just like kind of trying to bounce ideas off of directors and producers, and not trying to necessarily tell them that I know the better way to do this, but that I have creative ideas, and here are some other ideas that could work. And maybe in my experience, I've seen something similar where something else has worked, or but then if it's like, no, this is my vision, this is what I want it to be, this is how I imagine this kind of song playing here, then they are the ultimate deciders. But I'm there to kind of be somebody just raising a question to see if it sparks something.
Well, and as a sort of jump off of that point that you just made, will you sometimes work multiple edits with different songs to present it just as a sort of like, we'll check it out, just to sort of like incite a response from your director?
Definitely. And a lot of times, it's like you could send ideas to somebody and say, hey, what do you think about these songs? Maybe they could work in this scene. And some people are really good about kind of hearing something and putting it together with the visual in their mind and just kind of being able to imagine how it might work. But a lot of times I really need to cut it to picture to show them how it's going to work to picture, in a way that maybe they didn't hear it, because I might want to edit certain sections of a song to hit in a certain spot. That's not how the song normally flows, but that's how it's going to work best in this scene. So I give that direction to the music editor, have them cut it in so we can present my idea to the director and show them how it could work, rather than just kind of giving them the song and hoping that they can hear it.
Well, it's interesting.
And so we might do that with like five different options for one scene.
And
Right.
it's amazing too, Justin, the way different songs will lean a scene, you know, when you're actually sitting there looking at like 4 or 5 alts on picks or DACs, and you'll see something that is like hugely emotional and takes the scene to a completely different level, or you'll see something that's whimsical, you know, and keep something really light. You'll see some songs that slow down a scene, you know, and other songs that help give it, you know, propulsion, you know. I love that process.
It's amazing. Somebody like Scorsese has been so famous about music and sourcing just the right song for the right scene. You know, he's been pretty great at that. You know, actually, so you know, Kier was talking about sort of 5 songs, you know, 5 or 6 songs. You sort of indicated the same thing. By the time you get the 5 songs that you like for the scene you've cut in, how many songs have you considered even just to get to that point?
Well, I would say, Justin, you know, in an example recently that we had, the show and supervisor had tried 6 different songs already. By the time we got involved, we put together kind of 21, and narrowed it down to, you know, the top 4 or 5 that we thought could work. You know, so it's a thinning down process like that.
Because I know it's sort of, you know, it's kind of publicly available. But if a song were to get placed on Empire, let's say, I know that that's sort of behind us now. But what would a license look like to an artist having gotten a song placed on Empire? And you don't have to get into the nuance, but just like, you know, how much is it worth? You know, it's that kind of stuff.
Well, it all depends, you know, and I think that there are different ways. You know, I mean, I think in general, our approach has been, how valuable is that song to us, and what is the relative value of that song. And so, you know, we kind of approach it and go, you know, if it's background, if it's montage, if it's visual vocal, you know, these will have different scales, right? And is it a Jay-Z song? Is it a
Jay Gray
you
song.
know, is it a Justin Gray song, you know, or is it a, you know, someone else on here that we've never heard of, song. And, but basically we have our buckets. And if you want to think, you know, for television, I won't say specifically, any show. For television, I think, you know, per side for a really familiar song that, you know, it's likely that you're in the $15,000 to $25,000 a side. If it's a song that is a fresh song that you haven't really heard before, from an artist you might know, it would be scaled less than that. And if it's an unknown song in a background part, it would be significantly less than that, and on almost a 100 multiple down from that. So
just to kind of dig into the per side thing, I just want to jump back there for a minute. Just to clarify that, what that means is that when you license a song, basically, if it's $1,000 for the sync part of the publishing side, it's another $1,000 for the person who owns the master recording, the actual recording of that song. So when he says per side, he's referring to each of those halves that together make an all-in fee. I just wanted to kind of clarify that.
But okay. I mean, I think further to the point, though, is, and this is the approach that we have always taken, is that, if we have the budget and the quote is fair, then we're comfortable paying that, because, a part of what certainly I do at the studio, and what Kier does every day is, place a value and a priority on music. And so the best way to manage that is to treat it fairly.
Kier, can we go back to something else that you said? You're dropping these real gems, and then I feel like we're moving on too quick. I want to just go back to something that you said earlier when you were talking about cutting up music to scenes. I found in my experience, some of my success personally has come from the songs that I'm producing that have resonated in the film and TV community are very they're very dynamic. There's a lot of parts. They work cohesively as a song, but there's a lot of parts. And in my mind, I was always thinking, well, it's nice to give editors something to chop around. You've sort of just confirmed that. Can you elaborate on it a bit more?
Yeah, I think, just like with a song or, a movie or any kind of story, you want to have a beginning and a middle and an end, and you want to take people on an arc. And even with a song within a movie, we want to do that. And so we want to be able to start the song in a way that transitions well, and then you want to hit the meat of like the song and the lyric that you want to use to help tell the story. And then you want to be able to get out of that song in a way that transitions into the next scene or part of the movie. So, we work with music editors who help us kind of, condense down the song into those elements that work the best with the scene. And so having different sections and parts of songs that give us options of what to use to get into the song or to get out of the song. Maybe there's some dialogue in the scene that we want to, maybe the song needs to get out of the way a little bit to make room for this dialogue, because that's the most important thing for people to hear. So maybe there's like a part of the song where the lyrics stop, but the vocals keep going, and there's like a ooh and an ah or some kind of background vocal that keeps the energy of the kind of the voice going in the song, but you're not distracted by the lyrics. Those kind of sections of songs are super helpful to have. And so having those changes, having things that aren't just loops, so that there's some development to the song. It takes you somewhere and it goes back. Having all those pieces are essential, really, to like being able to get a good cut of a song that can work well in a movie.
How about lyrically? How important are lyrics?
Very important, I would say. That's and the thing, I would say with lyrics that comes up a lot is just making sure. Every use is different, and sometimes they may call for something really specific lyrically, but most of the time, lyrically, we want to make sure that things aren't too super specific, right? It's not like a person's name or a specific place that you're talking about. A song about Boston, isn't going to be able to be used in many projects unless it's specifically about Boston. So those kinds of things are good to keep in mind about kind of keeping in mind that the lyrics, shouldn't be too specific, and something that can relate to maybe more general situations.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I wanted to ask you guys a quick question, and then we are just getting absolutely blasted with questions from our attendees, which is amazing. And we've made the mistake in the past of not going to the questions faster. So I'm going to ask you guys one more kind of quick question, and then we're going to jump into some of the questions from our guests, if that's okay with you.
Right.
What are some of the advantages? We kind of touched on it, but maybe elaborate some of the advantages of independent artists. Let's say, as opposed to signed artists, or songs that are unreleased versus songs that are already well known. What are some of the advantages that you can expect as an independent when you get an opportunity to place your song in a TV or a film?
Well, I mean, the first thing is you don't have to share your money. Right? I mean, that's the first advantage. But let me start and then hand to you, Kier. For us, if you are an unsigned artist, you might have more success at producing a main title for us, where in that case, when we're producing a main title, we need to own the entire thing. There are actually some, independent artists who make their living, by writing for TV and film, but also by having a lot of main titles, because the downstream revenue can be pretty substantial for that.
Yep.
You know, the other thing is that in some cases where we're doing writer rooms, you know, I think about a show that we had, Shots Fired with Reggie and Gina, where we wanted to have specific custom music written to most of our scenes. And in that case, we went and put together writers' camps of, you know, of writers that were unsigned, and kind of introduced them to each other, and kind of had a forced collaboration. And we were able to use like 11 songs from those camps in that series. So I would say that would be an example. Kier?
Yeah, we just had a really similar experience on Insecure with some writing camps with independent artists. It was a combination of independent artists and signed artists. But yeah, I mean, I think for me, you know, especially kind of dealing with a lot of clearance work, you know, most of the time I'm really excited to see that artists are independent because I get to deal with them directly, and they don't have to share the money, which means the money goes to them and the fees don't have to be as high because it doesn't have to be split between as many parties. You know, one of the things that I just ran into recently, and it just bears mentioning, is that, you know, I'm mostly excited about independent artists, but there are times when it can get me into trouble in, like, maybe an independent artist isn't quite as familiar with the process that I'm working through, and how to clear their music, or what rights do they own, or are they sharing those rights with the other people that they made the track with, and or is there a sample involved, you know, that hasn't been cleared. Those kinds of things, you know, I have to be wary of. But I'm usually the one to give people the benefit of the doubt, and most of the time it's never a problem. You know, every once in a while it does come up, and that just it is the nature of the beast of what we do. But I think, you know, and as I said before, you know, I just love supporting independent artists. So for me, it's like an exciting, that's, you know, that's what gets me excited, and the people that I'm, you know, excited to put forward for projects.
You know, Kier said something there. Justin, can I jump on that for a minute? You know, we've been involved in a because we do 45 shows, and so we have some pretty you know, specific requirements when we're licensing a song and clearing a song. But we have actually, you know, had a song before that we've had to get writers to communicate, co-writers to communicate, to come up with splits so that they could approve at that time, so we could actually continue on with the song. So I think, you know, just as a, I think as I would say, a bit of a guidance to the people on this call, is that that's something that, you know, when we're putting a song in a show, and it's no different for anyone, I think, you know, we are up against serious deadlines. And so we don't have a lot of time to chase those types of conversations, and to make sure that those things are covered. And so the more that you can be on your game from your business perspective, to be able to say to us, yes, I can speak for it. Here are the writers. Here's who you clear to. Here's who you check to. It makes it a lot easier for us to use that.
Fortunately, we've developed a platform called MDIIO that does exactly that.
Oh my!
Boom.
What are the chances? But just real quick, and as you guys know that have been on this, I'm like very, very low key about hawking the MDIIO, what we're doing with MDIIO. But this is exactly the point: is that when you start sending songs and sharing songs around, you want to make sure that all of that information is accurate. So you really make Jeremy and Kier's job easy for them, so that they don't have to go searching around, digging around, finding out information. All of a sudden, you do a license, and here comes somebody else that just popped up in the last minute that has 1% of the song. That's kind of the whole point of what we're trying to do, is let's make that information right, and then we can go and share it out with people, and really make, you know, empower you guys with what it is that we're doing. So anyway, you know what I want to do is I want to jump into some of these questions, because I'm kind of watching them, and there's some really, really incredible questions. So I'm going to hand it over to Zan, who is going to lead the charge on the questions. Zan, you're up. Zan. Is Zan gone? Well, let's see if she is gone. I'll start going down the questions. This is a really quick one for you, Kier. How often, Kier, do you and Season collaborate on each other's projects?
Officially or unofficially? I think
That's a good point.
we talk about each other's projects all the time. So we definitely kind of just in our conversations, give each other advice or ask each other questions or but officially I think we've collaborated on like 2 projects. We keep very separate. Our business is very separate. She also has a business partner that she's been partnered with for a long time before we got together. So we kind of kept everything separate. We have separate companies and staffs and all that and separate projects. But, now that we're working at home, we sit right next to each other all day and go talk back and forth. And so it's pretty fluid.
That's good. Zan is back with us. Zan, go ahead. Hit us.
So this is a couple of people asked this question. How do you guys get your music to your reliable or the sources that you rely on?
You mean like how do you get it?
Yeah, you talk about your trusted sources that you guys rely on when you're looking for new music. So how would you get that music to the sources that you rely on?
Well, I think the sources we rely on is to give us music that is going to get us excited or is going to work for our projects. So, the same situation as what Jeremy said. For me, it's like we get music from a million people, like we can only focus on certain ones. And so we build trusted relationships with people that we know are going to deliver for us. So, and that's just over time kind of building those relationships and building trust. And if, getting through experience with somebody sending us music that we like, we're going to go back to them. And if it keeps coming and they keep bringing us things that are interesting to us, then that's going to be somebody that we keep kind of interacting with. And those people spend a lot of time, looking for artists to bring into their catalogs and to represent. And they get, artists referred to them from people in their catalog or from managers they work with. And so I think, people come to me a lot of times looking for connections to those people, and I can refer them sometimes to people that I really like working with. But I think it's kind of, it goes both ways. Probably to get in touch with those sources would be to, reach out to them, research sync licensing agents, publishing companies, those kinds of companies to, reach out to them and pitch your music to them too, directly.
See, I think that's a really big part of it. When you're, working on a lot of shows or as in demand as someone like Kier is, you can't do every meeting, you can't do every call. And so, you have your relationships. For example, Justin Gray is a person where, you can call him up. And if you say, I need a song that is about a jungle, he's not going to send you a song that is "I Love You, Baby" and say, no, man, it's like a jungle, because you build trust with these people or with some of the sync agents or with some of the library services, and I think that's another area, for some people to consider is aligning with some of the library services so they can have some success. And to a certain extent, Justin, that's really some of what you're doing with MDIIO too, as a repository, is those are the trusted sources that, or managers or publishing companies that we can talk to.
Jeremy, you're glossing over it because I actually totally 100% agree with you. I think a great first step is to get exposed to library companies because they're eager to bring on songs and they're eager to bring on clients. And I think it's a great first step to helping get some syncs, build that story, as Kier talked about earlier, right? Like creating a little bit of that thing around you as an artist for sync. I think that's an excellent point that you're making is that sort of library concept.
Yeah, and just when I think about that, we have APM that we do a lot of business with. We obviously work with all the big publishers. We work with Epidemic is another one, Extreme. These are places that are constantly feeding us, and they have some, similar to the MDIIO platform. They have ways to be able to discern it and to sort it and search it, in the groove. I forget Cheap Shots company. What's his company called?
Format.
We love. I mean, we do a lot with them, and I know they're always looking, for reliable sources there. So, I think that, in terms of at the funnel, right? If you are looking for your first opportunity and you're going to be making music anyway, that's a great way to make music that can have some success and have some life, and you can interface with some of the trusted people that we're dealing with. That's an interesting on-ramp, and then I would say, if you want to say, Sony ATV would be the higher part of that funnel, or BMG, or downtown, would be the upper portion of that.
Great, I love it. More questions. They're just, every time we're answering the question, it sparks 3 more, which is amazing. Thanks, you guys. Zan, hit us up.
Yeah.
And by the way, just one of the quick questions we said was, can you repeat those names? This is going to be available next week on our YouTube channel, so just subscribe to it. You can get all these updates and get all of the new projects that we're posting on MDIIO and all of that kind of stuff. Anyways, Zan, go ahead.
Cool. Just to piggyback on the libraries, do you guys have any other libraries that you really recommend? What you think are the best ones, or the ones you mentioned are what you think?
I think, we mentioned APM, Extreme, Format is more of like a boutique library, but that's, they're really good at what they do. Crucial Music, BMG, a lot of the major publishers now have library divisions. So yeah. BMG, Warner Chappell, Universal, they all have library divisions that we use a lot. Trying to think if there's anybody else, but those are kind of the big names.
Are libraries managed by Live Humans 24/7, or are they all powered / navigated search libraries?
Well, I would say both. I think the music is created by humans. It's tagged by humans. It's very often, we're calling someone and saying, hey, we need a such and such, and they're responding with a link to a library, in response to our request. I'll go ahead, Kier.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, they have, people that have relationships with us. So we have a contact there at the library company, and we can reach out to them to send us a search, or we can go on the websites and search ourselves. So they're definitely staffed by humans.
In fact, sometimes it's actually fun to go on the libraries. There was a project that we were doing that was like a spec project that actually ended up, it ended up getting bought by HBO Max. And we were looking for something very specifically. We wanted like a hip hop, a pomp and circumstance. So like the juxtaposition of that. And so going through the library was quite interesting that way.
One of the things that we're actually starting to do on MDIIO is actually allow users to make their music available publicly. So actually, even though you're kind of your own person, and MDIIO is not a library per se, you're going to be able to search through MDIIO and access those public songs as well. So if you're not signed up to MDIIO, you are a part of a library for basically for free. Zan, go ahead.
This one's from Nikki. Are main titles the only case where an independent writer artist would need to give away the masters?
Well, I think there's all kinds of deals for all kinds of scenarios. So I don't think that, I don't think there's a single answer for that. I think in general, that's an example, and I think everyone could understand, why, if when the show gets Emmy nominated, you would want to be able to use that song. When you would want to for spin-offs and derivatives, you'd want to be able to use that song for marketing. And so, for us, that's a hard, fast. We want to own that song so that we can really commercialize it in as many ways possible to help market the series. Our core business is trying to make the best show that we possibly and the biggest show that we can make. And so, that's a tool to help us. But in that example, the writers still would keep their writer share, and that right. Can become very lucrative.
Right, exactly. And I wanted to just sort of jump off of that. The more rights that you sort of require as you're licensing those songs, the more expensive those deals get, potentially. Right? Like if you wanted, the more rights that you're trying to hold on to, you kind of pay for that exclusivity, as compared to, let's say, a normal just license where it's a background song in a show.
Yeah, I think we're always trying to be fair.
Right. Zan.
Yep.
Yes.
This is from Mark. Can you touch on submitting cover songs, and how often do you seek out cover songs?
Kier, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I think submitting cover songs is not a bad idea, as long as it's clearly marked that way. I think I personally don't find a lot of use for cover songs in the projects that I work on. But I think it's always something that can be interesting and can add to value to something, especially if you have a certain take on a song rather than just kind of regurgitating it the same way. That's something that can also kind of help kind of maybe get people familiar with you, by giving them something they're comfortable with and then putting your spin on it. I don't think it's a bad idea, but it's not something that I'm going to a lot.
A lot of trailers. I think, it's a trend in trailers and trailer houses. There are some I wouldn't even call them library companies, but some suppliers who have started a specific covers area, so that when you're looking for something, a bluegrass cover of, AC/DC, you might find it there. But in large part, I think, the publishers do a pretty good job of making available, a host of covers that they know they can clear as well, because there are some writers who will only clear a song based on you using their version as well. It's rare, but that's a piece. You would hate to be doing James Taylor covers if you knew that if you didn't know that he only wants to approve his version, for example. I'm making that up.
Actually, within MDIIO, again, here's just an opportunity. I'm not pushing. Within MDIIO, about a year ago, and I think we're going to relaunch it, we did a covers collaboration with BMG Music Publishing. 10 of their most popular songs that were 100% controlled by BMG. We launched a cover collaboration, which I think that we're going to relaunch, where it was like, I think we were looking for covers of like Heart of Glass by Blondie, but then also Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears. Some Hall & Oates stuff. So I think we're going to relaunch those to take the projects spot. And if you feel, they're not really time sensitive. So if you feel like you're going to do it, we'll leave actually really, really long expiration dates on those. So you can, work sort of at your own leisure and drop them into the bucket there. And we'll start sharing those out. Zan.
Can I add one other thing, Justin? I want to add one other thing, because we haven't really talked about on our, if we want to call it our trusted suppliers, our vessels to us are the labels and the major labels, who have very active sync departments, who are in many cases, first or close to first on introducing us to, a new sound, new song, new artists. And so that while I know we're talking to a lot of independent people on here, and sometimes there's, questions about that, they're still a great and very active resource for us and great partners. So I just wanted to say that too.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Zan, you got a couple more there?
Got a couple more. This one's from CT. Did any of the music supervisors on this awesome meeting go to college for this career or college at all? If so, do you think that decision was instrumental in getting the job positions you have, or did you land there via your connections only or mostly?
Sounds like a lawsuit on board. Here we go. Okay, who's up? Kier told me not to go to school.
Sorry. Oh, no. Well, I mean, I went to college. I went to music school. I went to University of Miami, and I studied music in the music school there. And they didn't have a music supervision major, but they did have music production for media. So I took a lot of those classes and ended up being my major when I graduated was media writing production. So that was some really good kind of introduction experience of like working in studio. How is music produced? How do you make music for a commercial or a film score? So that was a really helpful, schooling to go through. And then when I graduated, I was very interested in actually being a composer and a music supervisor. And those were kind of the two paths that I was looking at once I graduated. So I definitely recommend, going to school, going to college and getting a degree, whether it's in music supervision or in music or anything else, because I think that's just a good, experience to have. That being said, there's a lot of music supervisors. I would say most music supervisors didn't go to music school. Maybe a lot of them don't play instruments. So I don't think it's necessary to do that. But I think, even for me, if I'm hiring somebody, I'm looking on the resume and it's really good to see, college degree. Also, a lot of bigger companies, like when I worked at Sony Pictures, I think they would only hire people at a certain level. You had to have a college degree. It didn't matter. And I think that now there's a lot more programs specifically for music supervision at different schools, which is great to get some of that, the knowledge of the basics down, at least, so that when you come, to intern for me, or you want to get a coordinator job or an assistant job, you already have like the understanding of difference between a publisher and a label, how a quote request works and what the rights are, and those kinds of details that we could teach you, but it's great if you at least come in knowing the basics already.
I think also, just to add to Kier's message on that, I think when you're talking about, one of the things that Ward and I have, who's my partner at Fox, have realized is that there's not a lot of knowledge of all the jobs that in music, in TV and film. And so some of the things that we've been working on is just education, which is more conversational than anything. We're working with a couple of academies and the guild, to talk about what are all the roles in music, in TV, for example, where you might know vaguely what a music supervisor does, but you don't know what the day-to-day work and effort is that goes into that. You probably don't know what a music coordinator does. You might think you know what a composer does. You might not know what a music editor does. And so trying to just learn all of those different jobs, because I think, there are some people who are musicians who, I helped someone who was a music producer transition into a music supervisor because I thought that person had really great taste and solved a problem, an opening that we had. So I think that there's just to be able to educate yourself about what are all the roles available is worthwhile as well.
Awesome. We're going to take one more question because these are just going on, and I'm hoping that in all of this amazing information that you guys have given us, that a question that you may have had may have kind of been answered or handled. And just again, I want to thank you guys. You guys have been awesome. So we're going to take one more question. The
All right.
Zantastic Dan Polka. What do you got for us?
My favorite pun. This one's from Dan. Has the current pandemic caused major issues in TV film sync licensing, such as a slowdown in production, or are you seeing an opportunity to listen to new artists? Has anything changed in this lockdown?
It's a good point. I guess I'll start, but I'm curious. I'm also curious to hear Jeremy's perspective on this. But for me, yes, it's definitely changed. Some of my projects that I was preparing for were shut down, and a lot of projects that were about to start have been postponed. We were about to start pilot season, and a lot of pilots were gearing up to start shooting, and those I think have been a lot of them have been shut down. The few that I was preparing for have been postponed. However, there are a lot of projects that had been shot already that were just in post production, where we were just trying to finish the music and clear the songs and place the songs, and those have been ongoing. So we are still clearing music and licensing music and creating music for projects that are ongoing. I think I have some films that I'm on, some animated films, which take a really long time. So those films will be ongoing throughout this year. So I'll still be working on them for a long time. But I do think that as I finish projects, I just finished Insecure this week. So that show is going to be kind of moving off my plate. As I finish a couple other things, they won't be replaced as they usually would be by new projects for a while. So I think as this goes on, things will slow down even more as the things that were produced and in the can get finished, and new things aren't started up.
I mean, it's just so wild. This time has just changed everything, I think the first couple weeks of the shutdown, we were very focused on finishing post on a lot of shows, and our post team did an awesome job of being able to get to facilities and being able to work. I joked actually the first week, I said, for most people in music, composers and supervisors, we're accustomed to working in self-isolation in dark rooms. So, everything's the same.
Yeah.
So we spent a lot of time on that. And one of the things that we did that I'm quite proud of is, for the most recent episode of Empire and the most recent episode of American Dad and The Simpsons, is that we have been able to continue using live musicians to score those episodes. We've been doing, I want to say as many as like 24 people, and the musicians have really stepped up and set themselves up at home, and our composers have had to step up with some technology, to be able to make that happen. And it sounds amazing, to everyone's credit. So, but one of the things that I have said, and the other thing is that the communication from the licensors has been lightning speed. It's been faster than ever before, and I think that's because they don't have a stream of people coming in their office, and they have some time away from meetings to be able to be as urgent as ever. But one of the things is we've all learned that we can work from home at a studio environment. We've learned that we can work from outside or an office or whatever, and do these Zoom calls. But I would certainly like it a lot more if we were in production on shows, and if we had 30, 40 shows happening, that our flow was a little more natural. But
let me speak on behalf of everybody in this call. We agree. We'd like it if you were in production too.
Yeah, that's right.
Listen, here's the first thing I want to say is, guys. Oh, go ahead, Kier. Go ahead.
Yeah, just I mean, I think hopefully, obviously, this will pass and things will go back into production, and I'm assuming that there's going to be a surge because there's a lot of projects that are on hold, just waiting. You know, I was hired on a new movie about a week or two ago that, you know, is not going into production, but as soon as they're able to, it's going into production. So there's going to be a ton of those projects that are just holding right now. And, you know, in a few months, there will be a surge of need for all of us.
Well, if they were shooting in Georgia, then maybe they would go into production sooner rather than later. So we learned a couple of important things here. We learned a couple of important things. Don't drink Lysol. That's the first thing we learned today. Listen, I want to thank you guys. And if you don't have a free MDIIO profile, go get it. It's free, MDIIO.com. Sign up for free. We have lots of projects that are going to be posted there every day, but most importantly, it's going to keep your stuff organized. Kier, Jeremy, thank you guys so much for taking the time out of, ironically, I know what is a very, very busy work day, especially when it's in the middle of a Friday. My name's Justin. Thank you so much. Don't forget MDIIO.com. I want to thank Zan for helping us out today. My partner and CEO of MDIIO, Curtis Cerna, Scott Hutchin, who was the guy behind the emails that you're getting. And just again, thank you so much. Everybody be safe, and we'll see you here next week. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
My pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
All right.